The following podcast may contain some adult language. You've been warned.
Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen.
Welcome to Finding the Narrative, a Genesys RPG podcast. This show is dedicated to the Genesys role-playing system from Fantasy Flight Games, a show in which we, your hosts, discuss all things Genesys from both the players and a GM's perspective. I'm Tony Fanning, and with me, as always, is my good friend and co-host, Chris Holmes. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good, Tony. I'm doing good. My online name is Zezri, there for all you guys on the Fantasy Flight forums that had seen us doing this.
And I go by Asmodeus.
And you go by Asmodeus. Also. Yep. And we have a special guest tonight, Jamie Pierson from the RPG Brewery. What's up, bud?
Not much. Thanks a lot for having me on, guys. As you may know, Genesys is awesome. So I'm glad to be here.
It's got a new nickname someplace around in the Nerds International community. What were we calling it?
I think the acronym for it is SWK.
SWK, yeah. Sweet, wicked, cool, something like that.
Something like that, or Savage Worlds Killer, maybe? I've heard that thrown around a bit.
Everybody drink.
That's right. Everybody. There we go.
Want to get drunk? Listen to Chris.
So Jamie, we need to hear some geek cred from you. Sorry, not geek. Nerd cred from you. When did you start gaming, man?
First started picking up dice and not knowing what I was doing when I was 12. We just rolled dice and told stories. And actually got into buying physical books and playing by rules when I was about 15, I think. Second edition D&D like everybody else. And I was a D&D idiot until, I don't know, when Edge of the Empire came out, and I learned a narrative dice system, and I went, oh, there's stuff way cooler. So,
yep.
Been gaming quite a while, so I don't know, whatever that works out to being 20-something years.
Sweet.
Yeah,
so
math are hard.
Yeah, math are hard. And so you are basically our resident Genesys expert now, because you bastard, you've been running this game almost every week for the last few weeks, haven't you?
Yeah, we got three sessions under our belt in the homebrew fantasy game I'm doing.
Nice.
I was supposed to run one this weekend, but plans got canceled. Instead, we went and saw Monty Python and the Holy Grail on the big screen.
Hey, that's better than Star Wars The Last Jedi.
And that will be another show. Oh, there is another show.
Yeah.
Put that on there. Yeah, so cool, man. Well, hey, man, great to have you on. And I know you. This is our magic. We're going to be talking about the magic system tonight. And you were really interested in it, so I wanted to have you on so you could drop us some knowledge and share with us your experiences so far and everything. So let's get into some news. I think everybody pretty much knows now. I think it came out a day after our first episode. Is the Tyrnoth setting book coming out in Q2 by Fantasy Flight for Genesys. It's pretty exciting. Now I haven't played.
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I haven't played like their games like the Runebound. Is it Runebound? And is it Descent as well?
Yes.
Descent and Rune Wars and Runebound.
Sweet. Yeah, so that'll be dropping Q2, maybe just before Gen Con. Yeah, rock on. Any other news we have out there?
Not really so much news as I just wanted to bring up to all of our listeners out there that want to know about the dice. There is a cheaper option than just buying the dice on handfuls of dice. You can actually get the Genesys Dice Roller from the Google Play Store and iTunes.
That's true.
Or wherever you buy your iApps. I don't get iApps. I'm sorry. I'm a Samsung user. But it's available for $5.99. which is about $10 cheaper than the dice, and it does do the cancellations for you and all that stuff too.
Yep.
If you want to get in and have a cheaper option.
That's right. And if you don't like the feel of dice in your hand, there's just something wrong with you. That's all there is.
Well, the good thing
I
about
gotta roll
it
the real dice.
Yeah, oh yeah, I know. I'm that way too. But the good thing about it is, for anybody that's looking at getting the app, is first of all, the quantities seem to be still limited on finding it without somebody gouging you on Amazon or eBay for the dice. But you'll never have a need for a second set of dice. You have an unlimited quantity of Genesys dice.
And it comes with a set. It also has regular RPG dice on it as well, and it's a pretty good dice roller as far as the averages.
Mm-hmm.
So
cool.
But that was pretty much it we had in the news, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. All right, so we got some listener feedback here. We got a couple questions. The first one is from Stefan Dragonspawn. He says, "Hey guys, looking over the Genesys PDF and thought, could there be a fourth magic skill for powers of the mind? Psionics was one we came up with. Psionics, now would that be intellect, willpower, or presence?" And we were kind of thinking that this would be more of like the mind over matter, coming, pulling within, your internal, mind power and making things, if it's the mind over matter. If you think it is there, kind of thing. Things like telepathy, remote viewing, precognition, moving things around, with your mind, maybe even force choking somebody, if I dare say. What do you guys think?
You want to go first, Jamie?
Sure. I think that you would be overcomplicating things.
Yep.
Because the reality of it is, when you talk about things like telepathy, remote viewing, precognition, telekinesis, all of that stuff is already covered by what's the term for it? It's basically just narrative spells.
Yeah, narrative spells.
Correct. Utility spells.
The
utility spells. That's what I was trying to think of, yeah.
That's
and
true.
I also wanted to bring up, and I answered him on his question on Facebook about this, that the psionic is actually a race given on page 182 in the settings section. There is a psionic race that covers the less narrative uses of psionics as powers for that race. So you could just have a psionic race too and not have to worry about that at all.
Excellent. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and I think like anything else, you can reflavor, kind of flavor and texturize some of these other skills. Like instead of calling it Arcana, you can call it Psionics if you want, and it can have the same powers if you wanted. I mean, it's basically however you want the look and feel for your system or game that you want to run.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, I was going to say that realistically, it's even if you wanted to do all that stuff, that again is stuff that's already covered in like curses.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's stuff that's already there. So what you'd be doing is just adding a fourth magic skill that would just be completely unnecessary, because now you're trying to divide up, because the way the system works already, which I'm sure you guys wanted to cover more later on, but the way the system works already, each each magic action is dedicated to 2 different magic skills. So if you were to throw in a 4th skill in that, it really unbalances everything that you're looking to do between those 8 magic actions.
Gotcha.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah,
I think the balance. I think the balance is the main issue here, and I think keeping with the tone, if you wanted to have a psionic, making the character a psionic race, and then allowing him to build on Arcana. Arcana really kind of does cover all. If you look at all the powers that fall under Arcana, they all kind of fall. All of the ideas of go into your regular idea of psionics fall under that. It would just be, not to use another game system's term, but it would just be a trapping for your Arcana. Would be a psionic trapping, so to speak.
True.
Right.
I think we beat that question to death.
I think so. It's still wiggling there a little bit. We'll hit it later.
Well, hold on. Did we all agree on that? Because I could start arguing against the point, and we can just start arguing if you guys want.
No, we're all good. Everybody's out there like, what's this magic system all about? But we're going to be getting to that here in a minute.
Yeah.
All right, Tony, what's the other question?
We had a second question here from Eric No Sleeves McGee Lamoureux, our friend over on the Wild Die podcast. He says, here's a question for the show. Chris was doing a Genesis before it was a thing with his version of Primeval Thule. Now that the book is out, what is the next world you want to create with it and why? And since I feel bad for Tony not having his own question to answer, I guess he can answer this one as well. So what do you want to do there, Chris?
What would I want to do there? Oh my gosh. Okay, so I must say, Achtung Cthulhu looks pretty cool. And this is why. I ran a Day After Ragnarok campaign. It's a Savage Worlds campaign, an alternate history, how World War II ended by, instead of bombing Nagasaki and Hiroshima, we bombed the Midgard Serpent because the Nazis raised it with
cults. That's cool.
Occultists, and brought that, raised it up, and that ended World War II. Well, what I wanted to do is a prequel to that campaign in this, using Achtung Cthulhu, and put these guys in there to try and stop it. And it's Cthulhu, so they're going to fail, and they're all going to die. But it doesn't matter. It'll be fun.
Well, not all might die. They might go insane.
Well, it's the same difference, right?
Yeah, same difference, really.
That would probably be the next one that I would want to do. And I know you guys out there who had ran in that Day After Ragnarok campaign listening to this are like, yeah, you bastard, you better run that. So it's coming, maybe. How about you, Tony?
Well, for me, first of all, I haven't told people what my setting that I'm trying to build is yet. The setting I'm actually trying to build, the first one, is Hellgate, London, based on the video game property. My friends and I, we played the video game when it first came out, and then I did a D&D 3.5 conversion for the game, and that sat on a shelf for years after we played it for a few months, and I thought Genesis would be the perfect system for that, so I'm going to be doing a treatment of that for my friends.
Nice.
But honestly, the second thing, and the thing that I'm almost wanting to throw my Hellgate London down for, is Middle-earth. I would so much love to do Middle-earth for Genesis.
Mm-hmm. I highly recommend you pick up some of the One Ring source books, even the stuff that they've been building for 5th edition. They've been doing a fantastic job with that, and that just gives me so many ideas as well.
That's cool. I've seen those at the friendly local game store here.
Highly recommend it.
I have been tempted.
Yeah, I recommend it. How about you, Jamie?
Eric didn't ask me.
You're doing it. It doesn't matter. You're on the show. You're here. But you're doing a homebrew. Is this something that you've had in the back of your mind since you were 12 years old, or what?
No. We decided to go in the Wayback Machine, and what I did is I created a very small section of a continent. I put 4 cities on it, and those are the only things that had names, and we're building inward out. And cool. So I like that approach because we're writing the history as we're playing it.
Nice. Well, that's cool. All right. Well, hey, I think that's kind of wraps it up for listener feedback.
I got one other little piece of listener feedback that I didn't put into our show notes that I completely forgot. Today is January 22nd. Mm-hmm. It is my youngest son Sean's birthday. I wanted to shout out to him if he's out there listening. Happy 19th birthday, you little shithead.
It looked like he was behind you going, yeah, see, there he goes, yeah. Well, happy birthday, you little shithead.
That's right, happy birthday, you little shithead. There you go, shithead, 3 shitheads to you. From these 3 Magi, by the way. And that's, by the way, that's the name of our episode, in case everybody missed it. It's 3 Magi, because we're going to be talking about the magic system here. So let's get into that. Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
Magic. It's what brings us together. Sorry, that was my best, what is it? The Princess Bride impression. We're talking about magic today, and this section is called the Book of Genesis. I might have some really cool like music for this. I could have said like in the beginning there was whatever, but so we're talking magic. We're talking this magic system for Genesis. What do we need to cast spells in this sucker?
Dice.
Imagination, man, because it's limitless.
Imagination.
Absolutely. Yes, we do. We do need a rank in one of the three skills. In one of the three magic skills. So you have so this is from the core book. We have arcane, divine, and primal skills.
And those skills can be found on page 70.
Yep. Page 70. And the magic system starts on page 210. And that's kind of where we're going right now. So yeah, so as long as you have a rank in one of those skills, and typically you would want to only allow your players to select one of those skills, but you can let them pick two if you want. Doesn't really matter. Then they can cast spells. And those spells are what's called spell actions, magic actions. And what are those? Either you guys speak up. Doesn't matter.
Well, there's two types of spell actions. You have your narrative spell actions. Those are spells that are taken care of outside of a combat situation.
Yep.
For instance, you want to levitate across a river, or you want to prestidigitate, so to speak, your clothing clean, or something like that. Those are narrative uses. Those are handled like any other skill check. You GM sets a difficulty. Sometimes it's based on the spell. Sometimes it's based on what you want the spell effect to be. If it, for instance, mimics another skill. So, for instance, if you're trying to become invisible to sneak past guards, you really are treating it like a stealth skill. In this case, though, because it's magic and you don't want it to become a catch-all for all activities, you're always going to increase the difficulty by 1 for a narrative spell check. Gotcha. If it's going to mimic another skill. So opening a lock with magic, whereas the simple lock that we talked about last session, the simple lock at 1 purple difficulty to pick locks with your skullduggery skill would only be 1 purple, whereas if you were trying to do it with magic, it would be 2 purple.
Cool. I like that.
Now help remind me on this one if you could, Tony. I remember reading that too, but what is the purpose of that? Because if you're doing that, not only are you making it harder, but you're also expending strain.
Correct. But the reason why that they did this, and they say right in here, is so that it doesn't become a catch-all. Because if you don't have the strain mechanic and you don't have it become increased, what is the point in putting points in other skills?
Right. That's the biggest thing I was trying to drive at, especially for your listeners, is because if you're a mage or whatever, you're not going to probably have a lot of skills in, stealth. So that's the biggest reason for it right there.
Mm-hmm. Right. Magic can accomplish it. But magic is hard to learn, it's difficult to master, and therefore, no matter what task it's trying to do, is always a little more difficult and always has a little bit more risk on the backside. Yeah. With the threat and despair that can be generated from it, they have some pretty nasty effects.
Yeah, they do. And, with those effects, you saying that it's hard to learn. You need to spend some points in it. You need to spend some points into your knowledge skill as well, and that was one of the things that I didn't do when I rolled up my character and played played the one time that I did. The ranks that you have in knowledge will affect or make your spells a little more powerful as well. Mm-hmm. And we'll get into those when we start talking about the different tables for these different types of attacks that we have. So what kind of different attacks do we have here, Jamie?
Well, if you're talking about
different kinds of spells, I mean,
like magic actions.
Yeah, what kind of different magic?
The basic terms is attack, augment, barrier, conjure, curse, dispel, heal, and then you of course have the utilities that we kind of talked about at the top part of the show. Mm-hmm. And each of those, that is the, I guess for lack of better words, generic term that just basically speaks the actual action you're going to be performing, and then from there you can really put layers on top of each action.
Mm-hmm. And those actions, those are the ones that you were talking about earlier, where certain actions are linked to certain skills. Like the attack action for one. All of the different skills, arcane, primal, and divine, can cast an attack spell. But healing can only be done by divine and primal.
Right.
But I mean, again, as a DM, if it suits you to kind of move those around a bit, you're definitely feel free to do that kind of stuff. So,
Chris, there's a small part of my soul that is running out of my anus right now.
Really?
Because you said DM. And it's Genesys, sir.
Okay. I must tell you that the default of my dude, I've been playing that since 35 years. Okay, so GM.
I can't give you no shit.
I'll have somebody else wipe up the stuff coming out of your anus. So, moving right along.
All right, so. Okay, I've got my basic magic actions, but is there, more that can be done with them? What happens? Let's take one of these and let's say what happens when I want to heal.
Dude, I want to cast you want to heal? I want to cast a fireball.
All right, we want to cast.
Then
fireball.
we can heal.
Fine.
Then we can. I want to cast
You're
a
all
fireball
about the
on
shock
Jamie.
and awe, buddy. Come on, I want to help people.
I want to cast a fireball on Jamie for that last comment. Then you can heal him.
And then Tony will heal me. Yeah.
So what do I do to attack him? Well, let's see. Let's go to this. Let's go to page. What page is this? Page 215. 215. We have an attack action. Well, I don't need any concentration, but it is easy. It's an easy check for me. And what will happen is it will deal damage equal to the characteristic linked to the skill. So say I'm an arcane, I'm casting fireball. Whatever my intelligence is, say it's a 4, I'll be doing a base damage of 4. And then I'll add 1 damage per uncancelled success to that as well. And then there's no critical rating for this attack, so you can only inflict a critical if you get a triumph on it, which actually I kind of like that. That's not too bad. That's pretty cool. Now, there's also I want to do my fireball. So that's just a basic magic attack. So I want to do
that's more
fire.
like a fire bolt, right?
That's
just
more
the
like
basic one,
or just like a force bolt. Almost like a magic missile, if I be so bold.
Oh, you can't make it just fire for free?
Nope. I have to increase the difficulty of it.
Oh.
But I put some ranks in knowledge. So if we look at table 3.2-5 on that same page, go down to the 4th entry, fire. The attack gains the burn quality with the rating equal to your character's rank in knowledge. So say I've got 2 ranks in knowledge. We can go to the burn quality, and that'll mean every round after this, he will start burning. He'll take 2 points of damage, burning damage. So that'll increase my difficulty by 1. So now I've got hard. Yeah.
So unlike other generic systems out there, adding the fire trapping to this, so to speak, actually has a game mechanic.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. And you know what? I want this to be deadly because, that hurt, Jamie. That comment hurt. So I'm going to add another difficulty to it. But this also gains a critical rating of 2. So like we said before, you can only do a critical injury on a triumph. Adding this characteristic to it, you'll need to, it'll give you a critical rating of 2, which means you'll need to spend 2 advantage. I'll have to get 2 advantage at least. And it gains a vicious quality, equal to my ranks in knowledge, so it'll be vicious 2. Which means, when I do crit him, Vicious rating of 2 means I add 20% to my roll when I roll on the critical injury table.
Okay.
So yeah, you're gonna.
So right now we're sitting at a.
Go ahead.
You're sitting at a 3 difficulty magic attack that has fire.
Yes,
but it's not really a fireball yet.
No, it's not. Now, I can blast it, which gives it a boom quality. But that'll make it pretty difficult. That'll make it daunting. So maybe I don't want to make it deadly. I just want to get. You know what? I probably just want to make it deadly because I'm just hitting Jamie. Doesn't matter. Don't really need to blast. So maybe my fireball turns into a fire bolt.
Or a fire lance.
Or a fire lance.
Yeah.
He's got to harpoon him with it. But yeah, so anyway, so that's how you would do it, and then you would take your Arcana skill, you'd take your difficulty, start building up your die pool. And if you had an implement, which we'll get into in a bit as well, that'll help as well. So that's an example of building up and casting a spell.
An attack spell.
An attack spell.
And to cast the spell, as we said at the top, you have to spend 2 strain to do so. Yes. No matter whether it hits or not, you spend that before you roll. Mm-hmm. And then another thing here is that none of these augmentations or additional effects that you can do to your spell can increase its difficulty beyond formidable or 5 purple dice.
That's right.
Right.
So now, is that formidable before or after you add implements?
It would be. It'll be after any reductions. So it says right here. Yep.
Yeah.
And that. Let me just go ahead and do my fanboy thing, if you guys don't mind. But that is what makes this magic system so cool.
Oh yeah.
Anybody who may have heard on my show and stuff like that, and all the bitching I've done for years, this system finally encapsulates what I think magic systems should do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That example right there is perfect that you did, Chris. And what's so cool about it is, once again, here we go with you're showing your character's progression of knowledge as you're dumping more ranks into that Arcana skill. Therefore, those more difficult checks you're more willing to roll against.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So this magic system just absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't make I'd probably try a hard for like maybe a character starting out that has maybe 1 rank, and maybe if you got a 3 die pool, but that's still going to be a tough check. And it might work, it might not, that's the fun of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you definitely, when you're rolling these checks, and one thing I've noticed is that you want your positive dice to at least outnumber your negative dice by 1 as a player. And as a GM, you're trying to balance that out. You're trying to make it so that they have the same number of dice that they're rolling.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
But as a player, you want to build that pool. And so keep at low levels, or when you're at low skill ranks in your Arcana or your Primal or your Divine, you want to try to build your spells if you want them to succeed more often. Now, if you want dramatic effect and you get just like, Chris got angry at Jamie and you really want to really hurt that dude.
That's right.
Narratively jump on that. Add all the crap you want to add. I've got a player in my group for years has he would make a caster, and then he'd do what we had at one point. We had a magic burn system we were using with, but he would always try to cast like the highest level crank out spell that would just do a crap load of damage. Nice. The magic feedback to the party was just horrible, and then the guy ended up with so many mutations because we used a mutation chart and stuff for it. And he had so many mutations, he was basically an eggplant. He had purple skin, green hair, no eyes, no mouth, no arms. I mean, he couldn't cast spells anymore at one point because he kept trying to cast the highest level spells. But that's what I was getting at, though, is that you want to, as a player, you save those moments when you're trying to do something really nasty for when it's dramatically appropriate. Yeah.
And speaking of you talking about like magical backlash and everything, table 3.2-4 on page 211 gives us examples of how to spend threat and despair on skill checks. So this gives us GMs
Thank you.
The things to do, like I don't know, they roll double despair. The magic item that they're wielding is completely destroyed. I wonder what will happen there. One despair, he overexerts himself and loses their magical connection, and they cannot cast any more spells to the end of the scene. What the heck? You basically went bzzzt, and you're done. So that's cool.
I had that happen on the guys playing a spellcaster in my group.
Oh, really?
And we just narratively said that he was so in tune with all this arcane and trying to just do such badass stuff that it sent out a shockwave and it threw him against a tree, knocked him out for a little bit, and then we're like, okay, so now you can't cast any spells for the rest of the encounter. You just blew off all connection you had to the arcane right there. And it like froze over a pond and a half tidal wave and stuff. It was really cool.
Dude,
that's awesome.
Sweet. That is sweet. Yeah, so
I knew there was a reason we brought you on the show other than to bust your balls.
That is true. That is true. And you know, I must admit, this other game that has 2 D's in it and an ampersand, I'm making a cleric wizard, and I'm like, I gotta pick spells? Come on. I gotta put spells in a spell book? Come on. Why can't I just use this system? Oh, I want to heal somebody? I'm just gonna heal them. Oh, I want to cast Firebolt, or I want to do a Fire and Ice Bolt. Why can't I just do that? But we're not playing Genesys, so I can't.
Yeah, you just need to convince your GM to run Genesys instead.
Yeah. Get rid of that D. Get rid of that D Shift 7D game.
Awesome. So,
all right. So, do we want to cover any other of the spells, or do you think that just the example we gave was good?
No, because my opinion, I'm sorry, is curses. That has a totally different effect on it.
Well, sure.
Let's go over curses. Let's do it.
Okay.
Go ahead. Lead it off, man. Go ahead, Jamie. Yeah. Do it.
Oh, okay. So it's the same thing. A lot of these spells that you guys will notice between attack, augment, barrier, and all that stuff, they typically start out at a base difficulty, and I say typically, at a simple. But curse starts out at a average difficulty of 2 purple. And so you're going to be doing this off of either Arcana or Divine. Mm-hmm. And what you're doing is, if you successfully curse somebody on the basic part of it, is you're decreasing any skill checks that person you're cursing
That's nice.
does. So, in other words, let's say they had 2 yellow and 1 green. Well, now all of a sudden it's 1 yellow, 2 green. Nice. So you're making it harder for them to actually do any skill checks.
And this is it does say concentration, yes. And that means we have to, that's a maneuver, right? To concentrate?
Yep.
To keep her going.
So it'll become an ongoing effect. This was something else that my wizard player did against another spellcaster. Yeah.
So in this case, so your wizard character cast curse on somebody, and then when it came back to their turn again, to keep that curse going, they spent a maneuver on that second round, if you will, and kept it going. Then okay, cool, all right, nice. What do we have for additional effects here?
Well, okay, so one of the things too, and we should have probably brought this up during the attack action too, outside of your implement, the range on almost all these things is short range also. That's something to keep in mind.
That's true.
So I think the base across almost all of these is to increase the range, it increases difficulty by 1.
Correct. Yep.
So that's one of the things. Something else you could do on a curse is, this one's really cool, and again, it's something we've used, is the misfortune. So after the target makes a check, you may change one of their setback die to a face displaying a failure.
Oh, nice.
So if you
huge.
know, or you have the ability to, if you know ahead of time that they have a setback die or whatever, or they have a setback die against you because of armor or whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter if that thing comes up blank or threat. You just walk over and you go, change that to a failure. There you go.
That's cool. Any face displaying a failure. So I'm wondering if there's a failure and a threat on the same face. I can't remember if that was on a setback.
It doesn't say any. It just says a face displaying a failure. I think it just means the single failure.
Yep. If you hear
on
that,
setback
I just
dice,
dumped.
Setback die, it's only single results per side.
Yep, you're right.
So, yeah, you can take that setback die and just go ahead and flip it right over to a failure.
Sweet. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And there's a couple more there too. Doom, arcane only. Now this costs 2. After a target makes a check, you may change any one die in the pool not displaying a triumph or despair to a different face. What? So if I didn't roll a despair, I can make them have rolled a despair.
You're at difficulty 4 for that one. But yeah.
Wow. That's nuts, dude. That is nuts.
Yeah.
Now what if I can tell somebody's being cursed? Looks like we can probably dispel that. That's another one. And that's hard one. That starts off at hard.
But dispelling is only allowed by Arcana. It's not allowed in the other skills. And that's the only skill that is a single. All of them are usually the 2.
Yep.
And the reason why they did that as balance is that Primal and Divine had access to healing. So that was their reasoning for only giving Arcana the ability to dispel. And they said you could do giving the other skills access to dispel, but in doing so, it overbalances things a little bit. So it was definitely
they're
a balance
given heal.
issue.
Yeah, they're given that heal spell. Here's a question for you. Just looking at these two together, would you allow somebody to dispel a divine curse put on somebody using arcane? Now it does say you can select under the effects of a spell. Would you limit that to only arcane spells, or would it be really anything? I guess that's kind of the flavor of the game that you want. You could probably set that ahead of time. You might want to think about setting that ahead of time or spelling this out if somebody's has this character. How about you, Jamie? When you were shaking your head there.
Oh no, I'd say no. It just says dispel a spell, so that's anything in my book.
Cool.
Right. So the only way to remove a curse is to go see a witch or a wizard.
Nice. Or
the only way to get your wounds healed is to go see a cleric or a druid.
Yep.
There you go. Sweet. Awesome sauce.
Okay. So yeah, dispel does start out at hard, and I think all the rest of them start out at easy for 1 purple difficulty. It's just those 2 that are a little odd.
Yep. So we have mentioned this a couple times. What are these magical implements that we've been talking about?
I don't know. You got a magical implement hiding around your house?
Sure. I have a magic ring. A magic wand, if you will.
Oh, those. Okay.
Yeah.
Does your magic ring glow when you toss it in the fireplace?
Yes, it does.
Does your magic wand have a couple of magic orbs with it?
All right. So remember that disclaimer that I put at the beginning of this podcast, everybody? Watch out. You've been warned.
But also being serious here, though, magic implements, like they are in several other systems, they are ways to make the spells easier to cast.
Yep.
In this case, we have the druidic circlets, holy icons, magic orbs, magic rings, magic staffs, and magic wands, all appearing on page 218 and 219 of the Genesys core rulebook. There's prices. There's a price chart to also here at table 3.2-12 at the bottom of page 219 to give you suggested prices for them.
Right.
Obviously, your system's going to, flavor to taste. If you want these things to be even rarer, crank the rarity up and the price. If you want these things to be a little more common, maybe a couple of them are a little more common, reduce the price, decrease the rarity.
That's right. Yes, let's take an example of one of these things. Let's do we were talking about increasing range and whatever. Well, let's talk this magical staffs. They universally augment the user's ability to increase the range. So what happens is adding the first range effect doesn't increase the difficulty of the spell. So right immediately when you're casting an arcane spell or a spell with a staff, it's automatically at up to medium range. If you cast attack spells, you will increase your damage by 4 to start with.
Huge.
Yeah,
that's huge.
Now, is there something else you could do with these stabs, like to build specific ones?
I'm thinking so. Instead of a ranged effect, you can do like a staff of the ice mage, which gives you an ice effect for free, or keep the range, decrease the damage to add it by 2, and then any ice or range spells maybe are free. The first one, I don't know, something like that. You could just modify that and try and balance it out a little bit, but
or you could make a slightly more powerful magical staff that like your staff of the Magi, so to speak, that does a little more. Not just, it would be obviously a rarer item. It would be a more expensive item, but it would be something that would do more than just the base effect of what a staff does. You could have it also be superior quality so that it adds a boost die to your spellcasting.
I like that.
And things like that. It could also, on the outset, let's say you do have, let's just drop a name here. Let's say you have Saruman's staff, okay? And it specifically belongs to Saruman, but in the hands of Saruman, it gives him a free upgrade to his spellcasting check. And in somebody else's hands, not so much.
That's cool.
That's stuff you could do to make specific magic items that are tailored to your campaign magic implements.
Yeah, and really your imagination is really what's limiting you there.
Yep.
To be honest.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
If you've got something, I'm not sure about, maybe you can get into this in your Hellgate London campaign if there are, magical guns or whatever that they can use as an implement, to shoot, have like an arcane gunslinger, if you will. That can be an implement as well, and just use these as an example,
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing out of magical implements is read them all, understand them all, and then use those as basic guidelines for making your own stuff. Because like what Tony said, Saruman's staff or something like that, dude, that's awesome. When I have my staff, guess what? It does everything that the staff does, and I upgrade all my checks. That's just awesome.
Absolutely.
There's nothing stopping you from doing that.
Yep.
Right. And I think that, that all this narrative ability to change everything about the spell, about how you cast it, all of that is what makes this system so versatile. And when you actually sit down and play it, maybe someday, when you sit down and play it, you will see your wizards just going nuts with changing their spells up based on the situation at hand.
Right.
Yep.
And your cleric's not groaning, I gotta prepare my healing spells.
Or your wizard going, didn't prepare knock today.
Yeah,
exactly.
Because that's one thing we didn't specifically say. As long as you have that rank in Arcane, you have access to all of the powers that are listed under the Arcane skill.
Yep.
You don't, and that's 6 powers for Arcane, 5 powers for Primal, and 5 powers for Divine, if people were wondering.
Yeah.
And like I said, the idea of what gets rid of this idea of spell levels is just like Tony said, and this is what's so awesome about it, is you literally have an open book of stuff that you can just do. It's like, I'm going to just throw shit everywhere because it's awesome. Well, at lower skill rankings, you're not going to be as good at it.
That's right. That's right.
I'm not a master of the universe, but I am a master of this 3 foot by 3 foot space.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Cool.
Okay,
all right.
So there's some of these checks it talks about in the Magic that are also opposed. But there is a sidebar that I wanted to mention on page 214 for GMs out there that are using the adversary talent for your villains.
Ooh.
It is recommended, and I personally think it's a great idea myself, that even though it says all attacks against people in the adversary talent, any spell you cast against someone who has the adversary talent should be upgraded as well.
Yep.
And that's they listed in a sidebar as a suggestion, and personally I agree with them 100%. I will be doing it in my campaign for sure.
Yep. And that last sentence there, this should be enough to make the nemesis feel dangerous. You want to have that oh shit moment, that holy shit moment. I think we're screwed. I just tried to do that, and he just kind of it's fizzled out or whatever, right? Or the backlash. Yeah. I mean,
like Jamie's mind flare that he put up stats for he sent to us. Did you read that thing? I don't want to ever run into one.
I don't take credit for that mind flare. Yeah, somebody created a BAMF for a mind flare. I was like, this is awesome.
That thing was brutal.
Hell yeah.
Nobody would want to fight that. All right.
That's how it should be.
That's how it should be.
Should be a little bit of fear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Instead of, how many hit points does it have?
No, as soon as your GM says, okay, upgrade that 3 times, then your players start to go, hey, you guys, I think I left the oven on. We gotta go.
That's right. I don't think I'm going to cast this spell. I'm going to run.
I've seen that in my Star Wars games. Where people, you give them something with adversary 3 or 4, and suddenly you hear a little in their chair.
I don't see it in your guys' show notes here, but it's something that I definitely I hope to get it before we move on at all. But because we kind of jumped right over it in succession order of the book here, maneuvers in the magic system are awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Case in point being number 1, counterspell. There's only 2. But counterspell, okay, this one is phenomenal. Now, if you think about like the other stuff that we talked about, the D Shift 7D game, if you were to ever try to think about doing a counterspell or something like that, what do you end up doing? You grab your book, you close it, you bash the DM in the head with the book, and you just say, "Can I play Genesys?" Right. And this is why. So you can spend a maneuver. Okay, maneuver meaning, I'm just going to stand here. So I'm just going to stand here, but still be casting off my crazy fireball. And all opponents within medium range upgrade the difficulty of the checks to cast spells once. That is so awesome.
Sweet. So on your turn, so if you're a mage, kind of protecting your party, you can go ahead and spend a maneuver to do this.
Yeah,
and still cast your spell. So unlike other games out there, where you want to cast a spell and cast defensively, you can't counterspell at the same time.
Nope.
Nice. And this is all opponents upgraded difficulty to cast spells because you're kind of messing with the juju of the magic. You're
within medium range, which is quite a bit.
Yeah. Ooh, so again, this is something else that I didn't even know about until my buddy Lyndon, who's playing the magic user, goes, "Oh, hey, check this out. I'm going to counterspell." I go, "What's that?" And he tells me, and I get all pissed off because I'm like, "God dang, I'm putting a red die against you now?" So from a player standpoint, it is super, super awesome. It shows once again how much this system feels like you're actually doing magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's so cool. So that's the biggest one I want to touch on. Concentration is kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah, and you could flavor that however you want. Like you can have your little hex bag, your primal caster hex bag, just kind of shaking it out there, just messing up, almost quote unquote, almost kind of hexing people. Mm-hmm. But you're counterspelling them, making it harder. That's cool. Oh, sorry, Tony.
No, it's all right. It's all right. I was trying to talk over you. That's my problem.
Really?
No, I was talking about how you had covered concentrating a little bit earlier.
Yep.
And it just can you could just concentrate on keeping one effect going from round to round to round if you want to.
Yep.
Now, if your player had a narrative reason to maintain 2 effects for multiple rounds, is there a way they could do that?
Absolutely, they can. They just spend a second maneuver and a couple more strain to do it.
They
could
okay.
also, if they want, they can concentrate on a spell and spend a couple strain and counterspell. Keep counterspell up as well. Though their
yes,
strain,
they can.
They're going to have to take 2 strain again because they're going to have to take that second maneuver to do that.
And that was what I noticed that when I read that section myself, that you could actually be doing, because in this system you have the ability to, number one, you always have a action, a maneuver, and then whatever incidental you have on your turn. And everyone has the opportunity to spend 2 strain to take an additional maneuver.
Right.
But what you can do is cancel out your action for another maneuver.
Right, and not take strain, and not attack or cast a spell. Just keep that counter spell up or concentrating, those kinds of things. Yeah, man.
So, all right.
Sweet.
Well, I think we covered it, man.
I'm pretty sure we did. Well, if you guys have any questions about the magic system, something we missed, I'm pretty sure we covered all of it, but if there's something we missed, drop us a line, send us an email, make a comment, wherever you can find us. So let's go on to this to the next part.
Okay, welcome to our next section of our show. We're calling this Setting the Tone. This is where Chris and myself and our guest Jamie kind of talk about magic specific to our systems, our settings that we're building. And so, Chris,
yeah, man,
why don't you kick it off? Because you have so much groundwork laid with Primeval Thule, buddy.
Well, yep. I mean, and the reason why it's there is because it is a setting that has been published by Sasquatch Studios. It's called Primeval Thule. I believe they did it in for 3.5. I kickstarted their 5th edition conversion, and they also, with one of the add-ons or bonus things for the Kickstarting, they did a Savage Worlds conversion too. Now, what Primeval Thule is, they were inspired by the works of Robert E. Howard, Edward Rice Burroughs, those pulpy sword and sorcery type of settings, mixed with Crom, the riddle of steel, that only the dwarves know the riddle of steel. And yes, it is in there, the riddle of steel. The dwarves know it. And it is set in a land of during the time of Conan, and it is Thule. It's basically Greenland turned sideways. Atlantis has gone under, and all the Atlanteans are left here in Thule. Those are the ones that are left, and they do kind of have a little bit of, because it's a sword and sorcery, magic is scary. There's a bit of Cthulhu-esque kind of madness, insanity things kind of going on there, and yeah, that's one of the things that I wanted to bring in related to magic, is the madness, insanity, types of things. Now, there's nothing in Genesys for that yet, but my buddy Brian and I came up with the madness tables. We converted this to the Edge of the Empire, the narrative dice system, and I ran it for these guys, for you guys and a few others at Con on the Cob, and it turned out pretty good. It didn't suck. It was kind of a pre-Genesys kind of thing. Hey, this system can do fantasy. That was kind of what we wanted to prove, and we did.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
a lot of fun, dude.
Yeah, I loved that war priest you gave me. That was an awesome character.
And we at the time we took force powers from Star Wars and made different schools of magic out of those, and that stuff was inspired by what did we look at? Let me bring it up here real quick. There was, oh geez, No, I don't have it. There was somebody put out like a couple of different fantasy conversions for it that we kind of pulled in. But yeah, so here, I've got some madness rules, which actually I was talking to my buddy today when we were commuting. My buddy Clarence and I were talking. He's played this twice. He's role played 3 times so far in his life. And he's like, he's kind of pumped about the Genesys system too. But we were talking about how to do madness. And what I had come up with before was, let me see if I could find it. Have a little chart here. So if you roll a despair on a magic check, you need to make a discipline check and upgrade at once to maybe go insane or take some madness or whatever. Double despair is you need to upgrade that discipline check twice. If you make a hard magic check, it's a discipline check. A daunting magic check is a discipline check. And then if you fail those, then there's this short-term madness table where you could be panicked. You're frightened and you must run away or something like this. Then we were thinking, that sounds a little too complicated. So we were just trying to take maybe just threat and despair and just say, hey, here's a sanity score that you may have that may go up and down. Maybe you start with 100 points in sanity. And then as you earn more threat, as you cast your spells, that sanity goes down. So once you hit a threshold of 90, an effect happens. Once you hit 70, and another effect happens and whatever.
Nice.
And then maybe every week you can do another discipline check to maybe raise that back up based on your...
So kind of like the morality system for Star Wars. Very much.
I didn't want to do, and then we were thinking, I was trying to explain this to him, and he was kind of confused, and then he realized it's 2 separate checks. He wants to do things 1 check. Why can't we just do 1 check? So that's where I'm like, well, let's just take the rules as written, do threat, maybe despair. Then we were thinking, then he came up with, well, what if you add a force die? That light and dark side pips for every time after the base, right? And if you add a difficulty to cast an arcane spell or whatever spell, add a force die to your pool. Another one, if you increase the difficulty another die, add another force die to your pool. Roll that as part of your pool, and for every uncanceled dark side, that's a sanity loss. Sanity point loss.
That's cool.
That could be, you could use now for you people out there that don't have force die and haven't played Star Wars, well, you can use really any other die to do that, like a 6-sider or something, but I don't know.
You could just do even odd on any die, really.
Pretty much. But you do want to have that dark come up more often. So you can have like a 1 on a 6-sider not do anything. 2 and a 3 is a light side. 4, 5, 6 is a dark side.
Yeah.
Okay. So your 2s and 3s cancel, 4, 5s, and 6s, and whatever you're left with can go. But, hey, we were just muddling it around. I don't have anything set in stone there. So that's madness. And, and in this setting, I'm thinking of this setting, magic is evil. Magic is bad. People can go insane, kind of bring in that sanity of Cthulhu in there, too.
Now, is it all magic that's evil and bad, or because I know, like for instance, the cleric I played, he worshipped Mithra, the goddess of, or god, or I don't remember, Mithra. I don't remember which one it was, but anyhow, it was a god that I worshipped that gave me the power, and so even just casting holy spells also have that same negative mechanic involved also? Like a divine spell too? Or is it just like arcana?
As it is right now, I was thinking kind of yes, to be honest, to not kind of pull away from that. Maybe not make it as harsh. Maybe give that first upgrade a free, where you don't add that force die, but then everyone after that, hard and above, you do. Or something. I don't know.
The gods are fickle. You could just have it be that especially like when you're dealing with, in Cthulhu, you've got that Cthulhu-esque. Mm-hmm. The nature of those Cthulhu-type gods is that they're older than these new gods. Mm-hmm. And so when you're tapping into that divine power, it could very easily be corrupted by those ancient forces.
Absolutely.
So,
and even the primal forces too, can be corrupted. So that would be a yes. That would be a yes there. The other thing that I was doing with it was adding rituals. And these are just, you have different, arcane rituals, divine rituals, and primal rituals, which are more than anything fairly narrative, that you can do that may have a minimum skill rating. So say Arcane Lock. We got a minimum rating of 1 in Arcana. And, we can even use these arcane rituals as maybe utility spells. Cast them like utility spells if you want to, in a way. Creating a teleportation circle. Well, you need 3 ranks in Arcana to do that. But would you want it? Is teleportation Thule-esque? Does it have that feel? I haven't really gone through this completely, but, it's what we were thinking.
When I was still in the brainstorming set.
Kind of in the brainstorming set, but that's kind of what I've added. But the rest of the magic system, pretty much as is, because it's brilliant. That's all there is to it.
Well,
so that's what I've got.
On to mine.
Yeah,
on to my system. So I'm, as I said, I'm doing Hellgate. I'm calling it Hellgate Genesys. It was based on the Hellgate London video game property that was done early 2000s. In that game, you play as survivors 18 years after demonic Hellgates open in London, and these creatures from another dimension are actually, they're aliens, but they take on the role of demons. They're evil. They look like demons. They act like demons. We as humans have called them demons our entire lives, but they're just alien creatures from another dimension. They come through these Hellgates and begin terraforming the earth to their own tastes. And there are 3 different groups of people that rise up to fight these things. There's the Templar, which are an ancient order of knights and paladins, and they use divine magic as well as swords and power armor to fight these demons. And then you have your Kabbalists, which are people who use magic, and they use arcana, they use primal magic to summon elementals, to fight the demons, to cast actual spells. Ever since the demons came, their powers, these are people who used to be psychics in the real world, and their powers, ever since the demons came, their powers just amplified tenfold.
Oh, cool.
And they are your arcana casters and your primal casters. And then the third one is the remainder of government organizations that use high technology and stealth. Basically your spies, your snipers, people like that. They use advanced nanotechnology to use drones and things like that. So it's a sword and sorcery plus a high sci-fi or mid sci-fi setting. So in mine, a lot of the divine casting is done via auras. The Templar, they don't really cast spells. They just put off these divine auras that people can step into and get effects, whether it's the defensive effect for a barrier aura or the offensive effect of damaging aura that can be done to enemies, or the healing effect of a healing aura. So I have been looking at spells and the way they're going to be cast, and the Templar are automatically going to have all of their spells increased by 1 rank. Automatically, all of their spells are difficulty 2 to start.
Oh, wow.
But they're automatically auras. They automatically go out to a range and cover anybody that steps into that range.
Like a short range, probably, or engaged?
Yes. Short range. I think I'm starting with engaged range. That way, if they want to increase the range out to short, because it affects everybody that steps into engaged range, which would be up to 4 people could really get into engaged range with them. True, yeah. So that keeps the balance there. While there is an increased difficulty on all of their spells, they automatically get the boost upgrade of being able to affect multiple people. So,
cool.
And then for the implements I'm adding, because one of the things that the Kabbalists do is they graft demonic body parts that help them cast their spells.
Oh, wow.
And so I will be creating a whole set of implements for myself that are demonic body parts. Like the arm of this demon will produce the fire effect for free on a spell, or the eyeballs of this demon will allow you to use utility spells that involve sight as an incidental action. Things like that. I'm going to be creating a lot more implements for my arcane casters and my primal casters that make them different.
Cool.
So that's where I'm at. It's all just kind of theory crafting right at the moment. I've got notes written in like 15 different books right now. Nothing typed up.
There was one thing that I forgot to mention that I had changed is I've added a few knowledge skills. So we had like an education skill, geography, lore, nature, and religion. And if you all remember when we were talking about in the previous section how ranks in knowledge will increase, like the blast effect or the burn effect, right? I've linked my magic skills like Arcana to lore as that knowledge skill. Divine to religion. So if you have more ranks in religion, that acts as your knowledge skill. Primal, it's the nature. So if you put more ranks in nature, then that's your knowledge skill to apply on those tables. So if anybody's thinking about expanding and creating knowledge skills for their system, you might want to think about doing something like that instead of having just the generic knowledge skill or whatnot. So that's just a thought.
So Jamie, are you doing anything with your system to kind of fluff it and make it different?
Well, I mean, not really. Right now, we're only 3 sessions deep, and we're I guess, for lack of better words, getting used to the system. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So we're pretty much playing everything out of the book, and we've slowly added things as we've gone along. Like one of the things we did, looking on that table Chris was talking about, table 3 2-5. One of the things you could do with a magic attack is ice. Okay, so if you gave it the ice quality, it says the attack gains the ensnare quality with a rating equal in the character's rank of knowledge. So what we've done is we've said, well, what if I just cast ice and I'm doing it as a non-damaging? So we started doing that. So instead of it, like where an attack has a normal difficulty of easy, now if you wanted to give it ice, it has an additional difficulty. We started doing it as just a single difficulty to simply cast ensnare on them.
Oh, okay.
Without I like that, dude.
Yeah, so like you do the same thing with impact. If you wanted to just knock somebody back or knock them prone or whatever, and you could do that by just simply doing a single difficulty because you're not actually implying any damage. Now they do have on here, non-lethal, which is primal only, and what it does is it says it gains a stun quality. Well, it's essentially the same thing as what we're doing. It's just that we're taking away all damaging effects under the attack spell. So that's all we're doing. We're really toying with the system right now to see, what different ways we can make it go.
I like that. And then you can also add range. Just add range, right? And then ooh, dude, the destructive quality. That's pretty cool. Do like an impact plus destructive to just knock down a wall or knock over some cover that somebody's behind or whatnot. That's cool.
Or you could do the one that does sundering too, because think about Tony, you're saying like in Lord of the Rings when and Gandalf tells Saruman, your staff is broken and it just shatters in his hand.
Yep.
Yeah. Does no damage to him.
That too. Right. Yep. You can do stuff like that too. So that's the type of stuff that we're really toying with, is seeing just how expansive we can make the magic system more so than what's just being offered in the book.
Oh, I like that.
And that's what we're going to cover when we cover this and are setting the tone. It's really about making Genesys work for you, how to make it yours and your parties, and just let it shine. This system, if you just let it go at its own thing, try not to add too much to it, maybe a little tweak here and there, it's really going to shine.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah. And that's kind of this. So this is kind of what we're going to be doing here during most of our episodes here. We're going to take something out of the book, from the book of Genesis, kind of a mechanic, right? Describe it, maybe put some flavor on it, how we can narrate, how those rules translate into the narrative of what you're doing. And then in this other part, in setting the tone, we're going to apply those to, my setting here, the Primeval Thule setting that I'm converting, and Tony's Hellgate Genesis, London/Genesis setting, and just give those an examples. And these two settings, myself, I'm starting with one that already existed, so just kind of converting what's already there, kind of applying mechanics and pulling things from that, where Tony's starting from the very beginning, if you will. And then hopefully this will help you all out there create your own setting and what you want to do. So, all right. Anything else for setting the tone this week? Nah? All right. All right, everybody. Now for our favorite part of the show, Advantageous Threats. Bum, bum, bum. All right, dude. I'm going first this time. I might have gone first last time. I can't remember. Doesn't matter. Okay. I have a feral halfling. He's in the woods. He's in the jungle. He's being surrounded by these frickin' adventurers that are coming his way. And he wants to take them out because he's feral and he's pissed. He wants to summon a saber-toothed tiger. He's seen one before. His tribe has tried to hunt one down. Couldn't do it. So, he's going to be using Conjure. He's primal. Okay? So I'm going to start building up my dice pool here. We're going to say he's not that bright. Actually, no, that goes off cunning. He's very cunning. He's got a 4 cunning. He's going to have a 2 ranks in primal. Okay? So to conjure, he needs 1 difficulty. So I'm going to grab a purple here. Now, he actually wants to summon a saber-toothed tiger, which is Silhouette 2. So he has to actually do a... what's that called? It's going to be the one that adds 2 difficulty to it. So let's see here. Conjure is... what's that thing? The main one that he wants to do. Conjure, here it is. The Grand Summon. So he's going to add 2 more threat. 2 more. So I've got a pool of 3 purple, 2 green, 2 yellow.
Okay.
Now, what do you say? I'm thinking now. What does Counterspell do again?
Oh, that upgrades your difficulty.
Yeah. So let's say this guy's just kind of coming out. These guys are fighting, and I want to cast a spell, but one of the adventurers is counterspelling.
Okay.
Sound
so
cool?
That means one of those is going to be upgraded.
Oh yeah, it is. Yes, it is. So what else do we want to do here on this dice pool?
Well, you said your little guy was afraid, right?
Yeah, he is.
Put a black die in there.
I'll throw a black die in there. Do we want to add a story point to maybe make this...
That's totally up to you. You're the player here.
I don't want to, but I'm thinking the DM might. Because he just would. Yeah, he
will.
The GM.
Okay.
Never heard of that D guy.
Darn it. Dude, you guys... Come on, man.
It's okay, Gary. We forgive you.
The D-bag M.
Hey, yeah, true. Okay, so I have 2 yellow, 2 green, 2 red, a purple, and a black. How's that sound?
That sounds like one hell of a dice.
Yes, it does. Let's see what we got here. And yes, I am rolling this. Oh, I wish you guys could see this. Well, first off, I need to see whether I failed or not. Those get canceled. My advantage cancels out a threat that me being feared had nothing to do with it. It came up blank, so I overcame my fear. However, my my success on my triumph cancels the failure on my despair. But I'm left with one success, one advantage, a triumph, and a despair.
Oh, wow. All right.
So as the player, I would like this cat to pop up right in the middle of these adventurers. Just kind of leap,
Okay.
be at a place where it can pounce on these adventurers. All right, and I'll probably be like, whew, he actually showed, and I can't believe it. And I'll probably use that advantage to recover one of those two strain that I grabbed. So how would you like to spend that despair, peeps? I know how I would, as an evil GM.
As your GM, I would have that portal that the saber-toothed tiger came through stay open just a fraction of a second longer.
Yeah.
And a second saber-toothed tiger comes through it and leaps in your direction.
Oh. You're a little more evil of a bastard than I am. Because I would have had that first one attack me, but you brought a second one into the mix. I love it.
Yeah, because that's all I was going to say too. But that second one,
well, maybe
Comes
this
after
one's
me.
not as big.
well, maybe he comes out with 3 legs or something.
Like the two of them were in a territorial fight, and this one already has wounds on it,
and he already has taste of blood in his mouth, and he looks at me like a little appetizer. Maybe a little hors d'oeuvre.
Summoned away his target that he was going at.
Dude, I like that. I want to play that fight now.
What would you have done with despair on that, Jamie, as GM?
I had the same idea that I think Chris was it. Sure, that tiger landed exactly where you wanted it, but now he's charging after you.
Oops. Awesome. That is so cool.
All right.
Right,
for my advantageous threat here, I've even given my character a name.
Oh.
My character is Dan Flag the Murky.
Sweet.
And he wants to create a magic force bubble around his party to protect them. As there is a dragon flying over. It keeps flying over and breathing in our general vicinity.
Awesome.
So I am death.
Nice.
Yeah. Dan Flag the Murky might be Gandalf the Grey backwards. I don't know. So yeah, I have a pretty nasty Arcana pool here, and a magic orb that I'm holding on to.
Ooh.
So my pool for Arcana is it starts at 4 dice because of my high intellect.
Yep.
And then my skill in Arcana is 2 ranks, so it's going to be a grand total of 2 green, 2 yellow in the pool. And so the basic barrier spell is 1 purple difficulty.
Okay.
But I want to encompass my entire party with it. So that is going to increase that, since there are 2 other members in my party. That's going to increase that out to 3 purple difficulty.
Cool.
And then I also want to make it empowered. I really do not want us to get burned to death by this dragon. So I'm going to empower it, which would increase it by 2, but my orb reduces that by 1 for a grand total of 4 purple difficulty.
Nice.
Now my GM really likes the fact that he threw a dragon at me.
Hell yeah.
And so he immediately flips a story point to upgrade one of those to a red.
Oh yeah, because you're in the middle of a burning village, dude. So I mean, whether you want to or not, like it or not.
All right. So would we add anything conditionally to this?
Let me think. I would say maybe the smoke. Maybe you're coughing, maybe a little bit because of the smoke. You're in the middle of the village. So you're really not sure the timing at which you need for this to kind of come up. So add 1 setback die to that.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna roll this up.
Yeah, let's see it. Let's
got
hear
those
it.
dice sounds.
There it is.
All right. Oh, all right. So at the end of it all, I ended up with doing my cancellations here automatically here. Mm-hmm. I have only 1 die came up with a failure on my negative dice.
Cool.
All the rest came up with a ton of threat.
I'm liking the sounds of this.
Yeah, and my positive dice all had at least 1 success on them. So I have a grand total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 successes and 1 failure. So that's a net of 4 successes.
Okay.
And I had 1 advantage that cancels out 1 of the threat, leaving me with 4 threat. So 4 successes, 4 threat.
Okay.
And for the record, the failure came from the darn smoke and timing.
Oh, it did?
Yes.
Okay. And the threat came from everything else.
The threat came from just casting this nasty big bubble around my party.
So what do you think there, Jamie? As an evil GM, what would you do? How would you spend that?
For 4 threat?
Yeah.
That's essentially
the worst thing that I think you could do to a caster is just go take 4 strain.
Oh, that would suck. Yeah, because of the coughing and everything. Oh yeah, I can see that.
And the strain of power trying to keep this bubble over Dragonfire.
Yeah, well, myself, I'm actually thinking about, remember our session at Con on the Cob, where Sigmar was outside of that temple, and he was trying to keep that undead back with that barrier that you put out in front of. That's a barrier spell. That has to be a barrier spell, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking, with those 4 threat, dude, I want a discipline check from you that is going to be upgraded difficulty to hold that barrier up, because this dragon's breathing a little longer than what you thought he was going to breathe.
That's cool.
Nice. So if you make it, yeah, you guys are good. But if you fail, maybe take, probably because you did succeed and the barrier was up, maybe you'll take a little less. You'll take some damage or something. But
well, in this case, because I empowered it, for each success, it would reduce the damage from the fire by 1 for each success. Normally, It takes 2 successes to reduce it by 1. So in this case, if the dragon's breath, let's say it did 10 points of fire damage to us, in this case, it would still do 6 damage to the entire party.
Oh, but it would. Oh, I got you. But you have your barrier up.
But my barrier would reduce it.
Gotcha. Okay. Nice.
All right,
Jamie. Do you have a scenario for us that you would like to?
Okay. Yeah, I came up with one here on the fly because it is that easy in Genesis. Yes, that's right. I said it. Okay, so we're going to say the one-eyed big-nosed Pierson monster.
Oh yeah.
Is not too happy. And little did you know the one-eyed big-nosed Pierson monster is a divine spellcaster.
Ooh.
And he has a holy icon, which happens to be his bad eye, hanging on a necklace. Okay?
Loving it. Dude, the look of this guy.
So the holy icon is an implement, and what it does is it enables divine spellcasters to perform unique miracles. When they're casting a spell, adding any divine-only effects increase the spell's difficulty 1 less than they would normally. So I'm going to cast a curse on Shitbag the Feral Halfling, and Gandalf the Murky over here.
It's Dan Flag, thank you.
Dan Flag.
No, actually, I take that back. It's just going to be on Shitbox the Feral Halfling, because what I'm casting is I'm going to be casting Despair on him.
Ooh. Oh.
And I cannot do this with any other additional effects. So what it does is the target strain and wound threshold is reduced by an amount equal to the character's ranks and knowledge.
Ouch. Oof. That's going to suck, because that frickin' saber-toothed tiger's on his way to me.
So what we're going to do, and that's a 2 difficulty. So the base difficulty for Curse is 2, and doing Despair is 2, but having my 1 googly eye hanging off my necklace reduces that by 1.
All right.
And we're going to say the big nose one-eyed Pierson monster has a willpower of 4, but only 1 rank.
Okay.
Of divine.
Right.
So 3 green, 1 yellow.
3 green, 1 yellow. Okay. Then what's your difficulty at this point, did you say?
At this point, it's 3. It would have been 4, but because of my
3.
goofy eye, it takes it down to 3.
Cool.
So do you guys want to do any upgrades or anything?
Well, yeah, because not only would you want to upgrade the difficulty, give your bad guys adversary talents that'll apply to the attack spell. You want to give them adversary 2 to a curse spell.
Shipbox the Feral Halfling has adversary?
Yeah, of course he does, because I'm the DM
Adversary
now.
what?
Adversary 2. Let's do 2.
2?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
He's a tribal shaman. He's a badass.
And if you're out there listening.
As a player, I'm going to use a story point to upgrade one of those green to a yellow, so now I'm at 2 yellow, 2 green.
Okay, so why? What's in the story here?
Because what happens is as the big one-eyed monster focuses his eye on Shipbox the Feral Halfling,
Yeah.
the other eye that's hanging from a necklace just kind of slides up and looks right at him too.
Ooh.
Now he's got double vision on this guy, and he knows what he wants to do.
And then the halfling turns his head sideways like, oh, wow, that's kind of creepy.
No, he looks to the side. Are you talking to him or talking to me? I can't tell.
Exactly.
Anything else I should add to this pool?
Well, is that halfling? He's in his natural element of the forest there, and was he trying to hide when he was casting earlier?
No, I know. He's got cover from the saber-toothed tiger that's about to attack him.
So that's an additional setback die, right?
Sure,
Yep.
add a setback. Why not?
Okay. Are we good?
I'm
Yeah.
good.
Okay, right now my pool is 2 red, 1 purple, 2 yellow, 2 green, 1 black. And I'm using that app that Tony was talking about so your listeners can hear.
Sweet.
I wound up with
Uh-oh.
2 success,
Yeah.
2 threat, and a despair.
Oh,
Awesome sauce.
So your wound and strain threshold is reduced by my 2 ranks of knowledge now. And that has concentration, so I'm going to use one of my googly eyes to concentrate on that through the duration of the encounter. So you guys tell me what 2 threat and 1 despair does to me.
I'll take the threat, Chris. Go ahead, kill him with the despair.
Go ahead, do the threat. I'm looking at this chart 2.4, by the way, table 3.2.4. Go ahead.
Well, I think the 2 strain or the 2 threat is that you're focused so heavily on that halfling that you are going to give you're basically opening yourself up to an attack from one of that halfling's companions from behind. So he's going to get some boost on his attacks on you.
Okay.
Nice. So, as a GM,
You had to think about that.
I know. I was getting.
You got it right, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
So, what kind of a spellcaster are you? You're like a priest. You said a divine caster,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Oh, he's a priest of what's that? The thing with all the eyes in Cthulhu.
Oh no. Shoggoth.
Yeah, no, I can't remember. Azathoth? Isn't he the one with all the eyes? Yog-Sothoth.
I was thinking Grummish from D&D.
So
Nice.
let me think. So since we're potentially in Primeval Thule here, and little do you know, I'm gonna as a GM, I'm gonna kind of say, you know what, I'm gonna kind of hold on to that despair for now. But little do you know that I'm going to kind of take this little example here of all other spellcasters and creatures attuned to magical energies within a day's travel become aware of your character. So we're going to say maybe a rival cult has been hunting you down, and they kind of have tuned into kind of where you are because you've cursed them before, and they're kind of feeling it. So
Open myself up.
He's a beacon.
Maybe a day or two in the adventure, maybe next session. Yeah, buddy. There you go. You just created a encounter for next session for me. Right?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, that's the Advantageous Threats, everybody.
Yep. We changed it up a little bit, folks. We're going to be doing where we roll the dice every time. Both Chris and I think that having the dice results right there in front of us is really
pretty cool.
A little better. Yeah, a little more fun.
And then walking you all through building up the die pool and how we're pulling in, the environment and some other strange things to kind of screw each other over on is always just fun. So, all right. Well, let's just kind of end this thing.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Yep. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us on, a little longer show than I think we had intended, but having Jamie on and talking about this awesome magic system. Yeah, these informational shows might be closer to an hour and a half. Just to let you all know. I'd like to give a shout out to a podcast, a blog, actually, called The Dragon's Toolbox, created by Stefan Dragonspawn. The link, we'll put that in the show notes, but it's thedragonstoolbox.blogspot.com. He's had this going since, I think, August of 2016, and it's basically, I have in here in the show notes, a menagerie of randomly awesome gaming goodness. Because that's what it is. He puts out a lot of great stuff on there. One of the most recent things he's posted, the Bullets Over Frisco community project from the Wild Die, another podcast on a network. Shout out to you guys. Haha, 2 for 1. Yeah, so go check that out. He's got, go back in some of the logs. He goes over like dice and all other kinds of tools that you can use for gaming. He has some reviews on gaming products, games as well. So that's a great little nuggets for all of you there. So.
Okay, and you can find the Dragon's Toolbox and Finding the Narrative on the G+ Nerds International with a hyphen network. We are also available on Facebook at Finding the Narrative. We have an email, findingthenarrativepodcast@gmail.com. Yep. You can download our podcast on Podbean, iTunes, and you can listen to us on YouTube also.
Yep. We have a YouTube channel out there too. Yeah, on Podbean, it's findingthenarrative.podbean.com. Then we have a site there. We'll have a bunch of notes for you there too.
And feel free to contact us at any of those places. You can also get a hold of Chris and I on the Fantasy Flight forums. We're available there. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned earlier, I'm Asmodeus and Chris is Zezri.
That's right.
And
so how about you, Jamie?
So, yeah.
Plug your show, dude. Where can we find you?
Oh, yeah.
Which I did last week, but still.
Yeah, check out the show. It's the RPG Brewery. It's on YouTube, and I live stream on Twitch. Every 2 weeks, every other Tuesday, I have a show which is either a discussion or I bring on guests to talk about stuff. For example, I had Sam Stewart, the writer of Genesys, on my show to talk about Genesys. Mm-hmm. So we have those kind of shows over there and a lot of live plays. In fact, Chris was one of the players in the game we just ran, Pathfinder Rise of the Rune Lords. We just wrapped up Book 1, Burnt Offerings. And I got a Cthulhu live plays over there, and we're about to kick off a Star Wars Edge of the Empire live play. So check out the RPG Brewery, and just like Finding the Narrative and everything else they've mentioned, you can find that over on the Nerds International Google Plus page.
Awesome. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is our episode today. I thank you for listening, and I got nothing else, really. So this is Tony saying keep rolling them bones.
And this is Chris telling you all to remember the rule of cool and to just have fun. And you, Jamie? Don't say goodbye?
Eric didn't ask me to.
Eric? He didn't want you to say goodbye?
No.
Alrighty then. See you later, dude. See you later, everybody. Finding the Narrative Podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by any companies mentioned on this show. Any of the products mentioned on our show or appear on our website are the property and copyright of their respected owners. All items are used under fair use and educational and review purposes. All other items are the intellectual property of Finding the Narrative Podcast. Copyright 2018, all rights reserved.